You know the great books, right? That list of timeless classics that supposedly define our culture. But have you ever stopped to ask who actually made that list? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the literary canon to uncover its hidden and, yeah, often political history.
Okay, let's get right into it, because the answer is definitely not as simple as the best ones just rise to the top. For centuries, figuring out what counts as great literature has been a real battleground, with some very clear winners and losers.
So the official term for this list is the literary canon. But honestly, you should think of it less like a library and more like a fortress. It's a structure built to protect a specific version of cultural power, with gatekeepers who decide who gets in and who's left standing outside the walls.
We're going to take a journey through 4 key eras, and you'll see how the walls of this fortress were constantly being rebuilt, from the medieval period all the way to the 20th century, and how women writers have always been fighting for a place inside.
Let's kick things off way back in the medieval period. Here, the first barriers for women writers weren't just social, they were physical and religious. I mean, the very survival of a text was a huge challenge.
So, in an age of handwritten manuscripts, a woman's work was incredibly fragile. For it to survive, it needed a powerful patron, and it had to be copied over and over by hand. Without that, it could just vanish. And this wasn't just simple neglect, it was a kind of structural erasure, where the system itself made it almost impossible for women's writing to last.
So, how on earth could a woman get her voice heard? Well, the main way in was through piety. Visionaries like Marjorie Kemp could find an audience, but only by framing their writing as a direct message from God. But here's the catch. Even then, their work was judged on its religious devotion, not its literary genius. This basically ensured it was never seen as great art, in the same way men's texts were. Okay, now we're entering the age of print, a revolutionary technology that promised to spread ideas like never before. But for the women who actually dared to write, this new visibility, it came with a completely new kind of danger. The printing press was a total game changer. All of a sudden, a woman's work could reach a massive audience. But that came with a huge risk. Before, a text might just be lost to time, now an author could be lost to public scorn. For a woman, writing for money and seeking the spotlight was seen as a moral failing, a serious violation of her expected role in society. And this gets to a really crucial point. When women like Aphra Behn became the first to actually earn a living by writing, it wasn't just a career choice. As the scholar Lillian S. Robinson puts it, it was an act of treason against the established cultural order. They were challenging the system itself, and that system fought back by labeling their work and their character as morally questionable.
All right, let's jump to the Romantic era. Now, the fortress walls, they become ideological. They're built on a powerful and profoundly gendered myth, the myth of the solitary male genius.
So, Romantic ideology created this neat little split. Men, they produced sublime art, work that was seen as universal, philosophical, transcendent. Women, on the other hand, were pushed into the beautiful, writing that was considered domestic, charming, and maybe morally instructive, but never, ever great. It was a powerful catch-22. By defining genius in a way only men could supposedly achieve, the system just automatically erased the incredible contributions of wildly popular poets like Felicia Hemans. This systematically devalued female authors. And what's really wild is how powerful this framework was. Even a groundbreaking, philosophically complex masterpiece like Frankenstein was often dismissed or treated like a fluke. In fact, its genius was frequently chalked up to the influence of her famous husband, Percy Shelley. For final stop, we get to a really strange paradox. In the Victorian era, for the first time ever, women writers were dominating the literary market, outselling their male peers. But they were still locked out of the official canon of greats. And this chart just illustrates the conflict perfectly. You had women like the Bronte sisters and George Eliot who were absolute literary superstars with massive readerships. Their commercial success was off the charts. Yet, when it came to their critical and academic status, their work was consistently ranked as second tier compared to the men. So what happened? Well, the fortress defenses got an upgrade. They professionalized. The new gatekeepers were literary critics and, this is key, the brand new university English departments. These institutions created the official academic canon, and they built it mostly around men. They'd use gendered reviews to dismiss women's novels as too domestic or emotional, forcing authors like Marianne Evans to adopt a male pseudonym, George Eliot, just to get a fair shot.
So you see, dismantling this fortress isn't just about adding a few forgotten women back to the reading list and calling it a day. It's a truly revolutionary act. It means recovering those lost voices, exposing the biased systems that shut them out in the first place, and ultimately, redefining what we even mean by literary value. This whole centuries-long struggle to be heard leaves us with a really critical question, not just about the past, but for our own time. When we look at the greats we celebrate today, in film, in music, and art, who is still being left outside the walls, and why?